I will shout, don't worry. But before I start, I think there are many free spaces here to sit. You don't have to sit on the floor. There are, if we got together, it would be more comfortable. I shall continue the same discourse that Samir started, but I will be talking about what is happening since, let us say, a year in Egypt, from inside. Enlightening this from the perception of the people of Egypt, of all events. And I will do my best. I will try to be as objective as possible, not reflecting my own wishful thinking to the issue. Giving you as much as I can of facts. There is a special perception of the Egyptians now of the power, under the main title of disappointment, very big disappointment. So, the expression of the Egyptians about their own revolution is, our revolution has been stolen from us. This is exactly their own expression. I don't know if I will be that optimistic like Samir or not. I will let them review the estimate. But due to this disappointment, there is a very big lesson that the masses have learned during this process. I'm talking of a process, it's not just a one-simple a revolt or something like this, which is instinctively knowing the necessity of being organized. Because the first thing was, and I'm not going to explain what happened since the very beginning of the revolution, that in the very beginning, even this escalation of the revolution, as Samir started to describe, from 1 million the first day to about 15 or 16 million after 4 days, that means they were united. All of them know exactly what they want, not only what they don't want. The demands of the revolution, they have been formulated within 4 days, not from the very beginning. The very beginning of the revolution, nobody could dare to raise this slogan, down with the regime or whatever, that came later. But after that, they formulated the other demands, starting by minimum wages, which was not created during the revolution, but before, and so on. And then we have seen this development in the first year, as Samir described very quickly, with the elections and so on. And it did not start by elections. It started by the so-called referendum. It's the first division of the Egyptians into two main camps. It was not even elections. They have just created a theater play, demanding the Egyptian to make a referendum by yes or no on the modification of 9 articles in the constitution. Just to say yes and no. And after that, the main power in the hands of the military council, they have cancelled the result, even exactly 2 weeks after the result. But they have already obtained what they aimed to. Exactly what Samir said, the division of this united people's power. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. So what happened was 77% of the Egyptians voted in this referendum by yes. That means, yes, we accept the same constitution with these minor modifications. And the rest was no. That means about 1/4. Which means in the first propaganda that makes that possible was, if you say no to this referendum, you are against Islam. You are an anti-Islam, you are anti-God. And I think in Europe there is an expression they know, which was used long before in the Middle Ages, the antichrist or so. That was exactly the formulation. But anyway, and after that we became the elections, the parliament elections, and then the presidential elections and so on. And with more elections, more divisions, more fragmentation, and more losing of the orientation. So this process makes the people understand the necessity of being organized. Because what they have observed, without learning or studying political sciences, they have observed that the winners of this play were those who are already organized, were organized before. These are the state power, represented by the military council, mainly, and the Muslim brothers. Annexed to the Muslim brothers, the newborn, the new created power, which is called Salafis. I mean, this expression Salafis was not any among the terminology of the Egyptian political landscape at all. Nobody could recognize what does mean Salafi as a political power. Impossible. This is the result of this creation after the uprising. And the people started to observe this very complex relationship between parts of the same ruling classes, the same, between the Muslim brothers as the leading power of the counter-revolution and the leadership of the army, and I would not say the army because the army is something different than its leadership. The leadership of the army represented by the military council and the rest of the old regime, the Mubarak regime. That's also an expression in Egypt. The rest that still have quite a share of the power and would not give it away like this. No? Many of the Western observers, they started to propagate for the anticipated crash and clash between these different powers, but we kept saying no and never. Even before the result of the presidential elections have been declared, everybody was expecting a civil war even between the Islamists and the army and so on, but we knew that they will not get into a clash between each other. They are arranging the power among themselves, and they have made deals, and all these deals are so known that the normal, common, ordinary people are talking about it. I'm not telling you something of intellectual level at all. No? So, one of these deeds, as an example, is between the military council on one hand and the Muslim Brothers on the other hand. That was before the elections of the parliament and of the president and so on. We are not going to fight against each other. We belong to the same class. So the military council was keen to keep its privileges, which are enormous. The military council is almost a state over the state. There is no any possibility for the parliament or any parliament to decide about the budget, where the money comes from, where the money goes. No? Not even to know about these figures. No? Not decide, just to know it's impossible. So, and they have kept this privilege. And we are talking here, the economists of the country, they have estimated the volume of the economy controlled by the military council. And the estimations were about 1/4 to 1/3 of the entire economy of the country. Economy means not only industry, but economy in all aspects of economy, even real estate and tourism and agribusiness and whatever. So, and therefore, this military council was fighting for something very substantial. It's not only being in the power and continue being in the power at all, but we are talking here about quite a bunch of money. So this is one. And these generals, they were impertinent enough to declare that even in the TV, while having the power as the military council, that means they are going to fight for their privileges, for their one privilege throughout the last decades. So, as if these are their rights. So they have. So the Muslim Brothers have already given them these privileges, and more over than during the Mubarak regime. They have constituted it, they have ratified it in the constitution, which was not the case under Mubarak regime. So, and therefore, after having Morsi, the Muslim Brother president, in the office, a few days later, he appears as the winning general and give the order to those generals of the military council, you go home, and they go home like rabbits, like this, very obedient and so on, as if we are talking here about a silly play. But that was the deal, and the deal worked. There are also other deals. Samir has shortly mentioned to get the approval from the United States and from Israel to show them that they are not only keeping the same economic policy of the Mubarak regime, but in terms of national security and so on, they would go far further than the Mubarak regime. And I don't know if all of you, or some of you remember, during the last Ramadan, about 10 months ago, there were 16 Egyptian soldiers on the borders to Israel. They have been killed by, at that time, the so-called terrorist groups, heavily weaponed terrorist groups in Sinai. And the 16 soldiers have been killed, and the Egyptians started demonstrating on the street furiously. And then every day they knew that everybody knew about that, even the Egyptian government, even the Israeli government, even both they have exchanged the information before that happened, that will happen, but nothing was being taken as a decision to do something against. And they started to talk about the terrorists, and then started to give the information. We have in North Sinai about 5,000 heavily weaponed, heavily equipped army, not Egyptians, coming from all over the world, and they call themselves Islamists, and they occupy this North Sinai. And then they started to talk about cleaning Sinai from these terrorists and so on, to absorb the anger of the people about this lack of security. And after that, we had the war between Israel and Hamas, and suddenly the Western countries, led by the United States in this term, wanted to show Morsi as the leader of the negotiations, and it belongs to his brilliant way of negotiating that after 2 days of secret negotiations, suddenly this state of Israel, which we know always throughout all our history as a very aggressive state, suddenly is a very peaceful one, accepting all conditions, and opening even the borders between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and Hamas accept everything, and all this due to the brilliance of Morsi. They wanted to give him credibility, and it was about to be successful, this campaign. But slowly but sure, the details of this deal came out. They, as Samir said before, they have shown their face very quickly. So they started suddenly to talk about these 5,000 terrorists occupying the north of Sinai, not with the expression terrorists, but with the expression jihadists. Then this is a big difference, because with terrorists, the state cannot negotiate, but with jihadists, we belong to the same team, equipe, and then we have to talk with them because they are good and we shall, and so on. And after starting this campaign of the army, the whole Egyptian army suddenly was not able or not willing or whatever to clean Sinai, North Sinai, from these 5,000 soldiers, or terrorists, or Islamists, or call them what you want. And they are still there. And now we have some kind of conflict between a thin layer of army leadership, which would accept march forward that the Muslim brothers wanted to do, and a big mass under them, which cannot accept that. And this we can observe when you read between the lines in the newspapers. So the Muslim brothers, they give suddenly a new law that newly allow foreigners to own land in North Sinai, to let the foreigners buy North Sinai, and then the complot will get ignited after a while. So, but the first step is to allow owning land, which was not allowed before. And then, few days later, another title in the newspapers: the army did not allow. So, without having a conversation with the president office. So these are some conflicts, but not to the extent of clash. So I will jump at this point, because what are the Muslim brothers? Samir has already described quite a lot. But now I am talking about the description of this power. And this is not the result of my own thinking, deduction, or not even the result of our discussion within our party, the Egyptian Socialist Party, but even a discussion between all the left parties we know in Egypt. 4 of them. We have been discussing this, and we came to the result that we are facing now a fascist power. And using this expression is not like this because we are writing a resolution or an article in whatever. No, this is our reading of the very moment. The Islamists themselves, especially the Muslim brothers, they call this period after getting the power, not the transitional period, they call it, I don't know how to translate it, مرحلة التمكين. That means...
It gives the possibilities.
Yes, it means it's the period of getting the total control of the power. Now they have the power, but they don't have the total control. They don't have even half of the control. They cannot control the resistance, not only on the streets by the people, but the resistance of the apparatus of the state is enormous. So they are sitting in offices, but they cannot push or force their policies. And therefore, they have a list of about 13,000 positions in the state, key positions in the state, 13,000, which have to be replaced by obedient members of the Muslim Brotherhood organization. And they have already started. For instance, in the very beginning last year, they have changed the heads of all media, state-owned media, starting for sure by the TV, no? And replaced this by Muslim Brotherhood members. And then it was the conflict between the Muslim brothers and the judicature. No? And Morsi wanted to just fire the general prosecutor, and it was a huge uprising in the judges and the prosecutors, the entire judicature. But after a while, he succeeded, and now he has another prosecutor who is working just under the demands of the Muslim brothers. So, I don't know how to tell this joke.
General prosecutor, now we call him the special prosecutor.
The special prosecutor, not general prosecutor, only for them. But anyway, that was just to show. And then they started to overcome the Ministry of Education. So in the structure of the Ministry of Education, we have the minister, and under the minister we have 22 state secretaries, also vice minister, whatever, 22. And they have changed the 22 at once, putting suddenly 22 members of the Muslim Brothers. And within weeks, the material that children has to learn in the school have been radically changed. All the feminist history of Egypt has been cancelled, and now they have to learn the history of the Muslim Brotherhood as the triumphal fighting and anyway. this is also the way they are replaced. And now the resistance is growing, but the Muslim brothers are just ignoring everything happening on the street, ignoring all kinds of protest movements in factories, in the ministries or whatever, everywhere, because they are so sure of the support of the United States and of Europe, and last but not least of Israel. Just concrete, and we have here many evidence about that. It's not just my own perceptions. No? But anyway, when we talk about fascism, and I have been discussing this also with my European friends, they cannot accept this. No, don't go so far. No. They could be bad, and but they are not fascist. You don't understand what is fascism. Huh? Mainly Germans and Italians who have been telling me we don't understand what is fascism. Anyway, and that was within a discussion with members of parliament about the attitude of the Salvation Front. I'm going to explain what's happening about the Salvation Front. Not to join the elections, the parliament elections that have been launched by the regime about 2 months ago. Because the Europeans wanted us to participate in these elections, win or not win, whatever, and this is the only solution. All of them have told me the same, even Germans, member of parliament from Die Linke, and all of them were not able or not willing to accept our arguments. And in this sense, I have to say, it is not only the attitude of the left. Now we have, as a result of the attitude of Morsi, after he has concentrated the entire power in his own hand and castrated completely the judicature and secured his decisions from being how do you call it?
An appeal.
Yeah.
Or to appeal, or to put in question.
Put in question or to revise. No? That means he is the dictator like the Roman Empire, completely, the imperator. So after that, it was a sudden uprising on the streets from all over the country, refusing this, refusing letting him have all this power at once like this, just by decree. After this uprising, we have the formation of the so-called Salvation Front. And the Salvation Front is a form of, let us say, very heterogeneous. It's not homogeneous at all. It is mainly consists of liberal conservative parties and Nasserist, also nationalist parties, and left parties, all together. Also some groups, not only parties, and some personalities. And this Salvation Front was very important because it was the first time after the beginning of the revolution, let's say the uprising in January 25th, 2011, that we have any kind of leadership, because that was not available all the time. And for the first time, because the people were only claiming this situation, they were, where is the resistance, where is the leadership? We have hundreds of leaderships, and therefore we achieved nothing. But for the first time, it was formed something, and it was accepted more or less that these are against the Muslim Brothers, against the complete turnover, the complete revolt of the country, the killing of the civil society, and the Islamizing of the entire, or what we call the Muslim brotherization of the country. No? So, and therefore it was very important to keep them. But internally, these parties which form the Salvation Front, they are not homogeneous at all. And they extend from all the left parties, and the left parties have the honor that they are the only power in this front that has contributed to keep it until today by making decisions in order to have a mechanism of taking decisions, a mechanism of discussion, a mechanism of anyway, and to let the role of the young people always be more and more, because that was the guarantee for keeping it together, and not let some of them go out and have the negotiations. Because you can easily imagine the Muslim brothers, they tried all the time to divide this front, and the only way was to bribe some powers of it, some parties. And bribing some parties was not only by money, like this block, but by giving them, for instance, offices in the power, big offices, and so on. And many of these powers, they were not against, and it happened many times that some of them, they jumped out and made their own decisions and went to talk with the Muslim brothers and so on. But after every time, it was a very hard crash within the Salvation Front and get beaten again together and consolidated. Now, when we are talking now here about facing fascism, so the only solution would be not only the left, but the entire landscape, including the liberal and conservatives, but who are against the Muslims. The only demand that unify all political powers within this Salvation Front, the only demand is just against the Muslim brother power. When they start to discuss anything else, they are not one. They are different. So, and now we see to face the fascism, we have to be together. But still, the left is playing the main role to keep it, but it is not the role of leading this Salvation Front. We are far from being the leaders of the Salvation Front. And I think we can only succeed in shutting down the power of the Muslim brothers only when the left is the leader of this Salvation Front and not just a member. This is very important. And this is not to be achieved now, but perhaps to be achieved if we succeed in our initiatives to at least unify the work of the left together in the very near future. We have now the attitude, all together, I'm talking about 4 left parties, that we are somehow in a race between the progressive forces on one hand and the Islamist and counter-revolutionary forces in the other hand. If they succeed to get the 100% power and the control in the power, we shall lose, and the country shall lose for decades. And we shall be, the left shall be the first victims. And it will not be just jails like before. And I think we have examples in history, I don't have to repeat them. But if we succeed in crushing down the power of the Muslim Brotherhood this time, they will never achieve this power anymore. And they know that. And therefore, they are fighting until the last man, like they say. Now, they are not going to leave the power without blood in the streets, much more than before. Exactly 3 days ago, one of their leaders, he has declared in the newspaper with picture like this, first page, if necessary, we can change Egypt into Syria within 24 hours. So, one of the leaders. So, I think we have to understand what is happening within this Salvation Front. We have different liberal parties, not the left. And you can't imagine, one of these liberal parties, one of the strongest of these liberal parties, belong to the big bourgeoisie. But it's the main fighter with the left to unify the Salvation Front and to fight against the Muslim Brothers until the last end. Many people do not understand how comes. But when you search, you find out that this party, which is called the Free Egyptians, it is built up and financed by the Christian big bourgeoisie in the land. So there are 5 families, very known and very rich. Should remind you of the Jewish in Germany when they had to survive. And they know now they have to fight. There is no arrangement anymore. So, and therefore, this explains why they are fighting like hell, although they belong to the big bourgeoisie. We are sure they will fight with us until we succeed in crushing down the Muslim Brothers, and then we shall be enemies. But anyway, now we are there. Just to explain what's happening. There are others who are trying to arrange their business with the power. Every second day, there are tries and attempts to have discussions and to get any deals and whatever. But raising the role of young people in this Salvation Front makes this kind of deals almost impossible. I would be glad to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bien. Comme il y a des interprètes, je vous remercie.
If you don't understand, if you don't understand French, please sit with me. Sit with them. If you don't understand French, you understand French or not?
There is a place here.
Those who do not understand French, please sit there.
English speakers?
No, don't sit here.
Sit there.
Sit there with them. You will have translation there.
The translation is there.
We have two interpreters here. We're going to interpret into English.
We can hear. It's okay.
You will have translation in Chinese.
Bon, écoutez, après ces deux interventions,
在法语，学法语。
Okay.